Hey y'all, welcome back to our Wednesday devotionals. Today, we're going to take an opportunity to take a pause and to recenter and to recalibrate ourselves to God. We know that this past weekend was a big one in the life of the church as we celebrated Christ's glorious resurrection. And what that does is it leaves us with an opportunity and a challenge to live life differently. Specifically, what I want us to think about today is how do we live a life of faith that can change someone else? Here's what I mean. In Luke chapter 8, there's this story of Jesus, and he is approached by this official named Jairus. And Jairus comes in and he's panicked and he says, "Jesus, I need you to come with me because my daughter is dying." And Jesus recognizes the faith that it must have taken for Jairus to come and to ask him, because this was a big-time Jewish official, someone who wouldn't have had a lot to do with Jesus. And so Jesus agrees, and he brings his disciples, and they start to go with Jairus. And as they're making their way to Jairus' house, something happens. This is that story where the hemorrhaging woman just touches the hem of Jesus' robes. This person who has been under this affliction for year after year after year, which means she was not allowed in the city walls, which means she was not allowed to be with her family, which means she was not allowed to work or to care for herself. She had to have been outside of the city walls because she was considered unclean by the rituals and the laws. And so Jesus is walking, and this person just reaches out and touches the hem of his garments. And we see Jesus stop. He stops and he looks around and he says, "Who touched my robe?" And again, he has to ask, "Who touched my robe?" And this woman steps up and says, "It was me." And Jesus, being Jesus, knew her backstory, knew what was happening. And he looked at her and he said, "Daughter, you have been made clean. Because of your faith, you have been made clean." Because she didn't need to have that conversation with Jesus. She didn't need to have this discussion with him and ask him to heal her. She believed that even being close enough to touch the hem of his robe was enough. And I think there's a detail in this that we need to be mindful of, and that's the fact that Jairus was watching. Jairus had to have gone through all of his avenues to try to figure out how he could heal his daughter, and where he eventually landed, after he had checked off every other option, he landed on, "I need to ask this guy Jesus." And as they are walking, this encounter with this woman happens, and she is healed and she is made well. And you have to think that it was her faith that made Jairus truly believe that this could work. It was her faith that gave Jairus the faith to believe that his daughter would be healed. And the story goes on that they make their way to Jairus' house, and Jesus goes in and he sees Jairus' little girl, and he says, "She's not dead, she's just sleeping." And the girl awakes. As we are continuing to live into our lives as Easter people, I think we can live our lives after the example of this woman, because it was her faith that helped somebody else see Jesus in a new light. Maybe your faith can help somebody see Jesus in a whole new light. This week, that's our challenge, is to consider how we can live a life of faith like that. That we don't have to go and have this big extemporaneous conversation with Jesus out in public, but instead, if we just simply do the action of going and touching his robe, maybe somebody else would see and somebody else would believe because of it. Y'all, I hope you have a great week, and we'll see y'all soon.